the real power of human beings. So we were just listening to a song now from Master Okawa that was about humans are created to do great things. So if we are, created to be able to do great things, we must have some great power that we can use to accomplish the great things that God or El Cantari hopes and expects us that we can do. So today we're going to talk a bit about what is the real power of human beings and how can we access that power. So I'll try to keep it, actually, even though the title itself can be complicated because it's based on this book here called Kanjizai, which has just come out. This is an incredible book. I mean, Kanjizai is a very, very high teaching, but this is from basically chapter 1 and chapter 2 from this book. And so it's really about it's quite simple. It's it's simple. Chapter 1 was about the great universe and human beings, and chapter 2 was the real power of human beings. Later on, it talks about, the Buddha's enlightenment and the Buddha's omniscient power of perception. So it's about Buddha's understanding of the universe, and it's much higher level for, maybe to understand. So this is a good stage to go through, the beginning point. So, starting off today, looking at this, Master said in the book, he said, all humans are innately endowed with spiritual power. So this is a natural thing that we already have. It's not something that we have to do something extraordinary to try and to bring to us. We actually already have this spiritual power. It's part of our nature of being a human being. And he said spiritual power itself reveals the true nature of human beings, which is that they originated from God. Yeah. So in a way, it's like if you walk up to the ocean with a cup and you put that cup into the ocean and you pull it out, it's a tiny little cup, maybe even a thimble. It's a little wee bit of the water out of the ocean. But there's absolutely no difference from what's in that cup to what's in the ocean. So we can relate that as like God is the ocean, and we ourselves are like that little bit of the ocean in that little thimble. The thimble itself could be regarded as like our physical body that we're in now. So because of this, because we are these spiritual beings, there are also some divine supernatural powers that actually already exist as part of God. So these are not something that, now I'm going to go through the list of the 6, and they're not something that we're going to be really aiming for today, because these are the 6 divine supernatural powers that people like Buddha or Jesus, the great, great spirits that are so highly evolved, they have those powers. So we can't expect to just suddenly have these divine powers. Actually, it might be lucky that we don't suddenly have these divine powers, because it could be like you give a kid, a 5-year-old, a sword, or a gun, and tell them to go out and play. All sorts of trouble might start. So you have to be able to have the discipline and the knowledge first before you can acquire these spiritual powers. So the first one is astral travel. So astral travel is the ability to actually travel through the spirit world. Master Okawa's used this a little bit himself, where he visited, for instance, in his meditation, he sent a part of himself to look on the far side of the moon. So the moon itself is always facing one direction towards us, so we only ever see one side of the moon, but people have speculated about what's on the far side of the moon. So he sent a part of himself to go and look, and what he found was actually, and we won't talk about it too much today, and for some people it might be controversial, but what he found was there's a staging base for people from other planets that are actually basing there to visit this Earth. We can't see them because they're on the far side. He also used it to visit Area 51 in America, where many people talk about there's a base where they managed to, at Roswell, I think it was, they managed to capture some aliens, and they've been experimenting on them and checking on them, and it's a very secure site that nobody can get into. But he sent a part of himself, spiritually, so nobody can stop it, spiritually down there to have a look, and he gave an explanation about what was happening inside Area 51. So he did many of these times of astral travel type thing, or astral projection. Another one is clairvoyance. So this is being able to see spirits. It's also closely connected to being able to, like the universe as one. We're going to talk about this shortly, about the enlightenment of you and the universe as one. So we'll talk about this more. I won't talk too much about that now. Clairaudience. I used a lot of that, talking to spirits people have passed away. They don't have a physical body anymore, but of course they still have their consciousness, so he was able to communicate with them. He said for him, communicating with the other spirits was like being on the telephone. Just like you and I, when we get on the phone, it's so clear, it's exact. You talk to somebody. So for him it was just like that, talking on the phone to spirits. Mind reading is another one. And through this he was able to check out the real thoughts of people, and especially with world leaders. Read what are they really thinking, not what they're telling us, but what are they saying, what are they thinking, what's their true intention. Fate reading is where you can see past, present and future lives. I remember a really great one that Master did where there was a lady, and I think some of you may have seen it, but she was suffering from disease, and often it was used for that, because if you could see a person's past life, you could relate to find some of the problems that they're having today. Edgar Cayce did a lot of this by reading people's past lives. You could actually understand why they're experiencing what they're experiencing now, and help solve the problem. Yeah, but one of the ones Master Okawa did, if you recall, there was the lady she was suffering from rheumatism, and when he looked back in her past life, she had actually been born a few hundred years ago, and the castle that she was in had been attacked and burnt, and all. They were losing the battle, but the enemy didn't just stop at killing off the soldiers. They actually came and burnt the castle and killed all the women and children inside the castle by setting it all on fire. And she felt that this was so wrong, that they would do this thing to women and children, burning them alive like that. So she died with resentment. And she had so much resentment that when she died, she became a spirit that attacked the people who had hurt her. So she possessed them and tried to hurt them for a long period of time before she finally left this earth and went back to the heavenly world. But now that she had reincarnated, that past karma of spending so much time attacking people and trying to hurt them, you could say, well, what she did was fair. What they did was terrible. But, everything's under cause and effect. So even if you do something that seems justified, it's still going to have a negative effect on us. It's like if somebody hurts me and I hate them, I'm feeling the hate, right? I might be putting a horrible energy towards them. Maybe they do feel it, but I'm feeling the hate. The hate's going to affect me. I'm going to attract bad things to myself because I'm creating the vibration of hate. So even if it's justified, it doesn't matter. It still hurts me. So even though it might be justified what she was doing, like attacking these people after she died, that spending a long time attacking and possessing people actually had an effect on her soul. It was really amazing. While Master was explaining this to her, and he's saying, "Oh, she might be a pretty lady, but boy, as a ghost, she's very scary." And she's laughing. It was so nice to see her attitude. She was able to accept it. The interesting thing was, but he said, the way to get over this now in your life, what you need to do is practice love that gives. You need to spend your life bringing happiness to other people, which is the opposite of what you're doing. You need to wish happiness on others and do what you can to bring happiness to others, and that will overcome that fate and that karma. And she did, and apparently they did a reading on her later, and she had this rheumatoid arthritis for quite a long period of time, and then within a month or so, it went away, and she was cured. And this is one of the things that happens spiritually, is once we understand the problem and we reflect on it and we change our mind, the problem goes away. So there was I always enjoyed that story from her. And the final one is spiritual wisdom, which is the ability to understand everything. See, Buddha attained the spiritual wisdom of the universe where he could understand everything, and that's why he could give 84,000 sutras. Of course, Master has the ultimate spiritual wisdom. That's why he could write 3,200 books. You can only do that when you've got the wisdom. Yeah. So these are the 6 divine supernatural powers. Each one of us will have to a certain degree, but it's not really what we're aiming for. It's something that should be a natural result of our enlightenment. As we seek enlightenment, these are the sort of things that will appear. So these are a result, not something we're actually directly seeking. Yeah, so Kanji's Eye, as I mentioned, is this book, and it's about Buddha's omniscient power of perception. It's being able to see everything through the eyes of God or Buddha. Imagine if you could see everything from that perspective. Understand everything from God's perspective. Wow, life would be quite different. We would be able to help so many people, because every time somebody had a problem, you'd be able to help them get to the cause of that problem and help solve their problem. Yeah. Then Master said, we can experience oneness with the universe when we spiritually awaken and attain enlightenment and become awakened ones. Now, when I first found Happy Science, or when I first started on my spiritual path, this was the one thing that I thought I really wanted to experience, this feeling of oneness with the universe. Because I know in Buddhism that's spoken about it, in Buddha's enlightenment, how in his enlightenment his soul expanded out, become one with the universe. And I thought, wow, that's got to be a great experience. That's what I'd like to experience. All these people take drugs and different things for all these wonderful experiences they want to have, but nothing can compare to the experience of being one with the universe. And that's really, you know what's also wonderful about that is we have the potential to do that. Because we are human beings, and because we are made of the same nature, and everything is God, just as I said about the ocean and the thimble of the water out of the ocean, if I take that thimble and I pour it back into the ocean, right? Or if I take my thimble and I put it into the ocean, oh, I just became one with the ocean. Oh, I understand how it feels to be the ocean. I know what the ocean is now, because now I'm the ocean. I was the ocean before, but once I got put in my thimble, I actually related to myself as being that thimble. That's who I thought I was. And I thought everybody else was just a thimble as well. But actually everybody was just a part of that energy of God walking around in a particular body. Yeah. So, yeah, but isn't that a joy to know that? I think that's one of the most liberating things, is to know we have the potential to experience oneness with the universe. Yeah. So, and he said this experience is called the enlightenment of the universe itself. So I've got a short clip now, which is, I'm sure you've seen it before because it's out of the laws of the sun, but it's one of the ones which was created by Master that really shows, because he was Buddha in his past life, because he's Shakyamuni Buddha in his life before this life, he shows what he experienced and how it felt. It's very brief, it's only a couple of minutes long, but from it we can sort of get a feeling about, wow, that was a wonderful experience to have. Let's have a look.
No matter what kind of thoughts I have, even considerate thoughts for my family, if they turn into attachment, they will cause great suffering. I must become unattached. I must become like the water in a stream that keeps running. I must pass on my knowledge of this enlightenment to others.
So we see that. Wow. Just think that that's hopefully the ultimate destiny of each individual, to be able to have this experience, to feel one with the universe. I remember actually reading in this book also, Master was talking about our perception of size. You know, we see the universe is so big, but actually he said from primordial's God's eyes, the universe itself is nothing like a baseball that he holds in his hand, and there's millions or even billions of other universes. It's interesting. Size is a very funny thing, because through electron telescope, no, the telescopes look out inwards. What do we call it when go inwards? Microscope, thanks. Through the electron microscope, they go deeper and deeper and look further and further and further, and it's like we just keep going infinitely small. There's no limit to how much you can look down as well. And they find the things where you go down look very similar to when we look out. So when we see a sun with planets whizzing around it, we look down, we find electrons and protons and neutrons and everything spizzing around each other. So yeah, it's to try to understand it all is part of the joy of being a human being, because who else can start to even comprehend this other than a human being? Nobody. That's why they say we're made in the image and likeness of God. We've got this ability to comprehend God and the universe. You know, there's no way a dog or a cat or any other animal, and even a dolphin, a smart dolphin, there's no way that they can start to comprehend what a human can comprehend. So that's where we are so blessed. We've got these minds that can understand things beyond anything other than up to the level of God. Okay, but Master said in the book, he said, the physical body is like a silkworm cocoon that has the light of God inside it. So imagine each one of us, the body we have, I called it a thimble before, but now let's imagine it's like a cocoon, a silkworm cocoon. And the light barely leaks out from the thick layer of the cocoon. So some people have a thicker cocoon than others, but the normal layer of a thick cocoon, hardly any light can come out of it. He said, when the light gets brighter and streaks through the cocoon, this is the state of exerting spiritual power while living in a physical body. So people who seem to have a lot of spiritual ability, or people who can have a lot of influence on society, these people, they tend to be, they've still got the same cocoon, but because the soul and self is exerting so much light, that light's coming through the cocoon. You see, if you've got a cocoon or even a piece of paper, if you put a very light, a dim light on one side of it and shone onto it, you wouldn't see much. But the brighter the light it gets, the more light that comes through. So this is the same idea, is that the more light that the soul exerts, the more light that can come out from the cocoon. He said, even great beings of light can only emit a small amount of light when they reside in the cocoon. Now you think about it. Okay, somebody like Jesus, or Moses, or Buddha, or Confucius, any of these great beings, Socrates, let's just go to one. Let's say Jesus, because this is an easy example. He was obviously a great, great, great being. He was the Son of God. Must have said he's the closest being that there is to God. He embodies the white light, the light of love. Jesus is love itself. Spiritually, if we could see Jesus spiritually, we couldn't look at him. He'd be so bright, it'd be like trying to look at the sun. So, we probably have to, pardon me, we'd probably have to look away, but, we would, wow, it would be so bright. And even an angel of light, so not even a level of Jesus, just an angel, they are so bright that as soon as we see them spiritually, people will bow down. People will, oh my God, look at this being, it's so incredible. But as soon as one of these beings, even Jesus, comes into a physical body, nobody can tell. Nobody, the time of Jesus, do you think they really recognized him as being someone great? A few people did. They became his disciples and his followers. But the majority of people couldn't. Otherwise, if people really saw who he was, there's no way they would kill him, put him on a cross and kill him. So as soon as even a high spirit, once they come into a physical body or into the cocoon, their light becomes very vastly, vastly diminished. Yeah. Look, the flip side of that is probably a fairness in it, right? Because if we come to this world for soul training and we're trying to do something and show our spirituality and through our actions, and the proof to be in our actions, then it would only be fair that people can't tell, oh, these are great beings, we should just follow them, right? If you were born and by the age of 1 or 2, everyone could see that, this is a great being, so everyone just started following you before you started even doing anything. It wouldn't be quite as fair as the person who grows up like a normal human being, as Master Okawa did, have to go through all that effort and do all those things and then actually have that enlightenment. And even after you've had that enlightenment, the only way people can tell that there's something really incredible about you, in his case, was through his words, through his writings, through his speeches. He didn't try to do miracles, because by doing miracles, that would go away from the real truth of the fact, which is the real power is in the words, is in the teachings, it's in the Dharma. That's the power to change people's minds. Not doing crazy things, crazy spiritual firing, lightning out of my fingertips, and as I said before, throwing chairs around as I want to, spiritually without touching them. That might seem, wow, look at that, that's amazing, but it might draw big audiences, but it doesn't really help people. But the teachings from Master, where you come to understand the human mind and explain the human mind and teach the truth, that's what changes people. So he had to exhibit his light, or make that bright light shine out of the cocoon through his thoughts, words, and actions. And he said the power that is most limited is the power of creativity. In the spirit world, we're given a power of creativity that is almost infinite, right? And he said, this is the power that turns our thoughts into reality. So as a spiritual being in the other world, if I have a thought, say I want to create a tomato, I can open up my mind, open up my hand, imagine a tomato on my hand, and there'll be a tomato. If I imagine a building, there'll be a building. Actually, no doubt, the more enlightened I become, the more those powers become. But our thoughts become reality instantly. Master said before, in the spirit world, thought equals action. So whatever I think happens. In this world, it doesn't happen quite so fast. In this world, say, and as I said in the other world, okay, I imagine a building. Okay, how tall is it going to be? How many windows? I can make all these ideas in my mind and it starts to appear. In this world, I have to think, okay, where am I going to build the building? Okay, we'll build one next door here to Happy Science. What's it going to look like? I start to draw it up on a piece of paper. So even after all this imagination, there's still nothing's happened. Now I've got to go to the architect, ask him to draw it up properly. I've got to get the people to flatten out the land, get the people to bring in the bulldozers, get the builders to come. There's a lot of money and resources required for it as well. And it takes a long time. But it still starts with the power of thought. So in this world, it's the power of thought that has that power of creativity, but the difference is that in the other world it happens immediately, in this world it happens very slowly. But one of the things we'll realise through this today is that the more enlightened we become and the more of our spiritual energy we're able to bring out, the shorter the gap between our thought and the reality. Things can happen very fast as we deepen our enlightenment. Our thoughts can actually create reality much faster. So, he said, the secret to developing our spiritual power lies in how we can restore our power of creativity and exert our original strength. That's our goal. Wouldn't that be great? No? If I could find a way to restore my power of creativity and exert my original strength, my life is going to be, I'm going to get a lot more done. It's going to be a lot more fruitful. It's probably going to be a lot more enjoyable in some ways, a lot less frustrating with not having things that I want to have happen. But it's important, therefore, to know about what those powers or what those abilities we have are. So he spoke about the true abilities of human beings. What are the true abilities that we have? So he said, although people are naturally using their innate abilities, many are still unaware of their real potential. So we sort of do it accidentally. We can't avoid but doing it. Now one of the things Master said, he said, you are what you think about all day long. Okay, that was an original teaching. You are what you think about all day long. So whatever thoughts we're holding in our mind all the time, that's the person we become. So that's a spiritual power that we have. Our thoughts become reality. The difference is actually knowing what's making it deliberate, not just letting it happen, not just letting our thoughts and whatever thoughts happen in our mind, and now whatever we by chance just happen to think, it starts to happen, right? And he said, regardless of the amount of light that shines through the cocoon, everyone is endowed with light. So we all have the light, so it's really just about finding ways to increase the light. He said, the amount of light that streams through differs depending on the thickness of the cocoon and the intensity of the light. Now here's two key points here when he said the thickness of the cocoon and the intensity of the light. And these are the two things that will be coming up that we will talk about, because if we can increase our light, that's one thing, then we're going to be able to shine more light through that same thickness of cocoon. But what if we could thin the cocoon down, make the cocoon not so thick? Then the same light would shine brighter. So we'll be talking about those two sides, about that's how we can ultimately change and increase the real power that we have. He said this light is manifested as spiritual ability, which is an extra power of human beings. And he said this is what is known as insight or intuition. When I was reading this, I thought intuition, that's an interesting one. I guess if I asked anybody here, if you thought about it, you'd find a time in your life when intuition helped you, or it played a part, or it affected your life. And I thought, actually, I remembered one with myself where it was, actually, if it hadn't been for this little bit of intuition, I probably or may not have been, pardon me, standing here now, because I'd set up Happy Science in New Zealand. And so I've been doing a lot of meditation, a lot of study, and I feel like my cocoon was able to be fairly able to receive some light or give some light out and be able to connect spiritually. And I was leaving work one night and I was in my car and it was pouring with rain and it was dark, and it wasn't a wide street that I was on. I went to the end of the street and, like I said, it was pouring with rain and it was actually a little bit misty inside my car, it steamed up a little bit. I stopped at the stop sign, so there was a T intersection, stopped at the stop sign, And I looked to the right, and there's nothing coming. I looked to the left, nothing coming. I looked to the right, nothing coming. I was about to go, and I just heard. I say heard, I could say felt, whatever it was. The strong thing said, wait! So I stopped, and I thought, what was that? I just felt like, wait! So I stopped, and I pushed my button I thought I'll put my window. And just as I did that to have a look, this car went flying past. It had no lights on, and it was like a big van going super fast with no lights. If I hadn't heard this feeling, wait, I was just about to pull out in front of it. So this is intuition, and so where does that come from? It's not from a physical body, it's from our spiritual chance of actually hearing something or feeling something. So it's a spiritual power that we have. And if we keep our mind in the state where we can actually receive that intuition, we can be safe from a lot of things. You hear of people, they're going to go on a plane flight and then they feel like, oh, something happened, they couldn't go on it. Then it doesn't happen very often, but the plane crashed. Or different things happen all the time, Or people got a feeling they should call this person, and they got a job that they've been looking for. So intuition can really help us in our life, and it's actually one of the spiritual powers that we have. Yeah, but after that I was so grateful. I'll never forget that moment. So some spiritual abilities that we have. Here's an interesting one. Master said, woman's ability to give birth. So sorry, Jay, that's not one of yours, but anyway. But the LGBTQ movement might disagree with me. Anyway, so there's an incredible thing about that, because when a lady gives birth, she has two souls in one body. And that's why they say women are just so spiritual. Women are such spiritual beings by having the womb, the fact that they can accept another soul into their body. So for a long time, they're living with a second soul in their body. Another one is language proficiency. That sounds a little bit interesting, to be a spiritual ability. But people who develop the spirituality will find that they can actually speak better and even speak other languages better. He even said simultaneous interpretation. So in Japan, when Master was giving lectures, often, when the live lectures, and many of us have been there to watch these, and he'd be sometimes speaking in Japanese and somebody's doing a simultaneous translation into English. I couldn't imagine how difficult that would be. You're giving these teachings or lectures from Master Okawa translated into English. We used to wear the headphones, so we'd be getting them simultaneously. And I couldn't really fathom how they could do that, because while you're listening to what Master said and then you're translating it and you're telling people what he just said, meanwhile you're still listening to what he's saying next, translating that and then coming out with that, it just seemed phenomenal. Well, he said this is actually a spiritual ability, because you're just working on your intuition, that these words can just be flowing. And we did always notice, and many people commented, how the professionals, which were people who weren't part of Happy Science and didn't have faith, when they did it, it was never as good as the people who were actually within Happy Science who had strong faith. Those people were maybe receiving more inspiration. Another one is foresight, or seeing the future. This can happen. Sometimes people get an idea of the future. They get an idea. And music and art is another one. It's a very spiritual thing. You see people who are very good at music or very good at art, and how can they be so good at that? Well, it's actually a spiritual ability. People like Michelangelo, he's spiritually he's one of those people, he's a bright soul in his cocoon that just shone so brightly that the result of all his art all around the world was that it painting the Sistine Chapel and so many other things. So we saw the result of his strong spiritual light shining through his cocoon. But this also happens to normal people. It doesn't have to be Michelangelo. I remembered, when I was reading this, I remembered one from a long time ago. And this was a young boy, and his name was Ethan. And I did play this once before, so some of you may have seen this before, but he was 6 years old. And they had him on, I think it was Tonight Show or something like that. And he was brilliant at the piano at 6. I've got a little clip here of him playing, and I think also his sense of humour is very wonderful as well, and his story is also very nice. So let's just watch Ethan here, and there's a little bit of his journey about how he learnt to play the piano, and then we hear him play. The one thing I'll mention is at the end when he plays, realise there's 4 little bits of music that he plays, and you'll hear the names. There's people like Chopin and Mozart, and I can't remember the other one. And the last one, he's also proud. He says, the last that's mine. He wrote the last piece, and it's called Tiger. The tiger runs away at the zoo. The tiger gets away at the zoo. Let's listen to Ethan. So without understanding the spiritual aspect, many people say, oh, he's just a genius, somehow he's a genius. But this is spiritual ability. So his soul has probably spent many lifetimes studying music, and it's naturally in his soul. So when he gets born into a body in this world, it's there in that soul. And something like music, it's probably a little different from some things that you need to get older before you can actually show your brilliance. But when you're that age, it can just flow out because his soul is telling his body what it's to do, and his body's just doing it. So, yeah, great example of spiritual ability. I love the last one where the tiger gets away at the zoo. I really felt the energy of the angst of the running away from the tiger. It was so wonderful, yeah. So actually thinking about that too, another example, and back to Jesus, they say that when Jesus was really young, he had a really deep understanding of the Old Testament. He was able to recite things from the Old Testament that the others, nobody could understand how he had so much information. Once again, that's his soul, the understanding of religion and teachings from God. That was his speciality. So every one of us, in our soul, we have specialities. All of us have got some interest that we have been pursuing through many lifetimes. And the key to really is to find that. What is it that we love to do? And try and bring that out in a way that shines a spiritual light into the world, which means that we're using our ability to benefit others. I mean, he loves bringing happiness to people through his music. He's still doing it today. I saw something, I think I don't know how old he is now, maybe mid-20s or something like that, playing more rock-type music now. It was funny, his song there when he ran away from Aerosmith. So that type of music wasn't something that he liked. Yeah. So, anyway. So developing spiritual powers, what we can do to develop our spiritual powers. So Master said the development of spiritual powers is all about bringing out the innate brilliance of your soul, which is confined within a cocoon. So we all have this light, but how can we bring it out? Okay. So Master said there are two methods to do this. Two methods, Master said, main way of bringing this light out and shining a light into the world, the light that we already have, all of us already have it. One is to intensify the light or the brilliance of the soul to the point where it shines through the cocoon. So that's one way. And the other method is to create a crack in the cocoon surrounding the soul to allow the light to leak through. So these are the 2 points. We can either make our light shine brighter, which is going to make it shine through we call it the cocoon, but it's really just the body that we happen to be in that's really dimming our light. Or somehow be able to make a crack in that cocoon. Right, well, increasing the amount, the first one when you mentioned was about increasing the amount of light in your soul. So for this one, he said, people who are remembered as great figures have the power to influence many people because they possess a great amount of light. Now, easy examples of people like this is Buddha, Jesus, Moses, Confucius, Lincoln, Mandela, John Lennon. And actually, if you look in the Golden Laws, Happy Science here, there's about 600 names that Master's mentioned of past figures. And these are beings that we know of in history because of the great deeds that they did. Edison's another one. See, he's an inventor, right? So the way that he was able to shine in this world was through these incredible inventions. But as I was saying a minute ago, we all have these abilities which are really the sum of our actions through our past lives that have led us to a point of development. So Edison, he's been an inventor for a long time. He loves inventing. So when he's not in this world, when he's back in the other world, his mind is working out inventions that he can invent and then bring them to this world. See, God created a system where he's given us eternal life and we're on an eternal path but from where we are now to become one with God again. And it's the joy of that path that brings us happiness in our life. But there has to be a way for us to be able to do it, to experience eternal happiness and not get bored. So when you've got this idea that, you go spend time in heaven, you come up with these ideas and things that you'd like to bring to earth to make the earth better and try and create an ideal world, and then you develop these things and you're born on earth. Now it's up to your spiritual ability. How much are you able to actually get the inspiration? One of the things earlier on mentioned about spiritual ability was inspiration. How much inspiration can I get and bring that from that world into this world and then bring it out and change the world? And if you do it enough, you become a figure that people see later on goes, oh, wow, look what that person did. Yeah. Someone like, who did I mention? Lincoln, for instance. I wouldn't be surprised if he's got a soul that's really strongly based on justice, like Moses. They see things that are wrong, and they're from the other world. They're looking at that, and then they work out a plan about how can I change that? How can I change the minds of people? Another one was Nelson Mandela trying to get rid of apartheid. You know, it's not an easy thing to do, but to give up your beautiful life in heaven and to come to earth and try to defeat a system that's wrong and creating suffering to bring it around to a way more in tune with God's thinking. So, but, you know, there's inventors. Steve Jobs, he's another inventor. You know, he's probably also been an inventor many, many times. Yeah, so, and the second one, let's just double click back there. So the first is increasing the amount of light in your soul, and the second is opening your soul, your spiritual channel, by removing the clouds over your mind. He said, now you can do this through the method of repentance in Christianity, purification in Japanese Shinto, or self-reflection in Buddhism. So this is what I love about Happy Science. We don't try to say there's one religion is right and one's wrong. All religions are actually trying to teach essentially the same thing, that there really is God, that you really do have a spiritual self, your soul, your true self is a spiritual body, and that you yourself can connect yourself to God. And so this way, like you mentioned here, of repentance in Christianity, purification in Japanese Shinto, and self-reflection in Buddhism, by doing this, another way of looking at it would be about becoming egoless. So we're trying to find a way, we're talking about having the cocoon, and that the cocoon itself dims the light. What if that cocoon could become transparent? If the cocoon was transparent, then the light would naturally shine out. And this is really about becoming egoless. So if I have a big ego and think I'm great and, you know, I make a lot of noise and about me, then I've got a very thick cocoon. And so to really, part of this is, as he mentioned here though, is and I want to give my own story here about my own experience that I had with this in a second, but he said, if you calm and purify your mind and clear the clouds, dirt and dust covering it, then your cocoon will become transparent. So I remember many years ago, okay, so I'd found Happy Science in 1994. I went to Japan. I spent a lot of time, a couple of years there. Then I went to Melbourne and worked in Melbourne and kept studying there and kept studying Happy Science for a long time. But then I left my job and I went travelling. I bought a van and went travelling around. I was living in the bush and doing different things. But I sort of got away a little bit from Happy Science, just as life does sometimes, and I was doing my own thing. And then I just started living much more of a natural life, less of a spiritual life. And I went back to New Zealand and I was working in the printing industry, so every day more came about having budgets and working hard and making money. And, you know, actually I wasn't doing any meditation, I was doing no self-reflection, I was doing no prayer, I wasn't reading any Happy Science books. I really just became a normal person, again, just living, based on living a materialistic life. Even though I'd spent all that time in Japan and all that great blessing of learning, it's still, I just put it aside and was doing this. And one day on my way to work, I was working as an account manager in a printing company, and I was on my way to work, and I thought, I'm not as happy as I used to be. I've definitely lost my sense of happiness. And I thought, well, you know, Steve, you're not practicing the teachings anymore. You've stopped your meditation. You're not doing any prayer. You're not reading any books. And I thought, okay, that's it. From tonight, that's it. I'm getting back into it. And I remember hearing this voice at that moment when I deeply, truly felt that's what I was going to do. I heard this voice say, it's time. Oh, it was like Master, it's time. Okay. So I went to work that day. Back in those days, I was back to smoking cigarettes and, you know, say it came morning tea, I'd be drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes and doing my thing. So then that night when I got home, I thought, okay, what do I want to do? I want to read a book. You know, I really want to get back to the teachings. What would I do now? What would Master teach me to do now that I've got back home? Well, he always taught to make good use of little bits of time, right? Little pieces of time are precious. So I pulled out, I don't know why I pulled out this book, I pulled out the Golden Laws and I started reading the Golden Laws. And in chapter 1 of the Golden Laws, it spoke about the thought tape and how all of us have a thought tape. And during our life, all our thoughts, words and actions are constantly being recorded onto the thought tape. And I thought, you know, these last few years, if I really examine my mind, it's not beautiful. You know, there's not much thought for other people. It's more about myself and everything. So I thought, yeah, because the Master said, actually, you know, when you keep your mind pointed towards God, it's like your thought tape is being printed in gold. But if you've got, you know, greedy thoughts or angry thoughts and all these different types of thoughts, he said, they often mixed become an unpleasant, what do you call, an incredibly unpleasant shade of grey. And I thought, yeah, I've really created a grey thought tape. So I thought, okay, I need to change it. So, and he did say in the golden laws that one of the beautiful compassion of God is that when you self-reflect, which is what he's mentioned here, when you self-reflect, you can change any negative thoughts on your thought tape from the past back to gold. Isn't that wonderful? No matter what type of life a person's lived, no matter what negative things have happened in their life, any bad events, any thoughts, words, actions that are bad, if they genuinely reflect on them and apologize deeply in their heart, recognize the mistake, and are determined to change, immediately their thought tape can change back to gold because the lesson's been learned, right? Our whole life is about learning lessons. So they've learnt their lesson and now they can actually, their thought tape becomes something beautiful. So I spent some time, I had a lot of tears. I was reflecting and repenting and apologizing to God how much opportunity I had when I went to Japan and how much I'd wasted and squandered this. And I thought about it and I thought it was like, during that time when I was really studying the teachings and making a lot of effort, felt like I had a big container and every day through my self-reflection, meditation and prayer, my efforts, it's like I was filling up my container with a happiness. It's like this container, which is my cocoon, I could say, I was filling it with happiness and I was constantly becoming happier and happier. But I reached a point where I was feeling so happy, I thought, well, I'm happy now. I don't need to do anything. I can just live my life happy. So I stopped making the effort of pouring that container full of happiness anymore. And you don't notice it, but each of our containers have these little wee holes. They're not perfect, so this happiness was slowly leaking out of my container. But we all know that if you've got a big container with little holes, you don't notice over a short period of time, it seems the same. Nothing's gone down. It's the same when you're driving a car, it's using a little bit of petrol. Petrol tank seems to stay there for a long time, and one day you look at it, it's nearly on empty. And I realized, wow, that's what it feels like. It feels like I've used up all this happiness. And I thought, okay, well, it's probably going to take a long time for me to refill this container. But I had this moment where through these tears and this repentance and reflecting on my life, I felt this moment where suddenly I felt this incredible gush of happiness. I felt like suddenly my container just became full again. I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm as happy as I ever was. Through realizing this and being determined to live this way, I felt like I expected, I'd have to work my way back. If I spent 3 years emptying out my happiness, I'm going to have to spend another 3 years filling it again. But I felt like with God's compassion that I'd learnt my lesson. And I do remember saying to God, I will never lose my way again. I promise to never lose my way again. So that was my own experience with this. And I do believe that there was closely related to this idea here where he said through repentance or purification or self-reflection that we can actually receive the light from heaven, which will actually make our own inner light shine. Yeah. So Master said on the next one, he said about how to deepen your spiritual powers. He said, first and foremost, you need to know how human beings were created and the purpose of human life and how great the universe works. So to have spiritual powers, we need to actually intellectually know the truth. For instance, I'm a spiritual being. I have a soul. The other world's the real world. There really is God, this great source of the great energy. If I don't know that intellectually, that God exists, or I don't believe in my mind God exists, how can I pray to God? Dear God, thank you for giving me life. Dear God, please guide me every day. If I don't have that knowledge of that truth, how can I even live that way? So the first thing Master said is we need to know how we were created. We were created by God, and the purpose of our human life is to develop ourselves and become closer to God. And he said, unless you gain the knowledge of spiritual world on which the spiritual powers are based and understand it intellectually, your powers are still premature. And I think that goes back to the idea before that, if people don't have that understanding, it's unlikely that the spiritual powers would actually help them because it could be more dangerous than not. If I had developed my mind that whatever I thought came true immediately, it could create a lot of problems in my life. If everything I wanted to happen happened as soon as I thought about it, there'd probably be some problems. For instance, maybe in my life I need to experience the challenge of creating a business that benefits people, that then I get the return of that and I get the money from my effort of thinking an idea that will benefit other people, the effort of actually going out and doing it and the courage to do it and having the faith to do it, and then I get the benefit later on. But what if instead I just decided, I just want to be rich? So suddenly I won lotto, So now I have $2 million because I, in my mind, imagined it. How am I going to live my life? No effort, no challenge. I just do whatever I want all day long. And I'm not really accomplishing the whole goal of my life, which was actually to become a person who can understand myself and other people and be a person who works hard to give love to other people. Yeah. So, he said, the deciding factor that will help you transcend the third dimensional world is the first one, is uncovering the power of faith. Yeah, so this is spoken about a lot by Jesus. Jesus said, believe and a path will open. And if you can believe, all things are possible. So faith, for people who don't believe in religion or believe in God, faith sounds like a wishy-washy thing for crazy people. But in actual faith is a real power. The stronger our faith, the more our thoughts can be realized. So as we have a deep, deep faith, then we can actually, the things that we imagine or the things that we want to happen in our life will start to come true. Actually, I think there was another one there, Jesus said, about a mustard seed of faith that will be enough to move a mountain. So this showed how strongly Jesus also was teaching about faith. He must have said the power of faith has the power to distort the worldly third dimensional law of physics. Another example, actually, in my own life of this was, and this is where I believe faith helps all of us a lot. I think, John, your faith has helped, and Kamala, your mum's faith has helped a lot in guiding your lives. I think all of us here in Happy Science have had the experience of how faith has helped us. But my own experience on this was when I first went to Japan. As I said, I found the laws of the sun, and I read the book, and I thought, wow, and I just believed that this was the greatest teaching. So I wanted to go and see for myself. And so anyway, I sold my car to go there, and I had prayed to Alcantara saying, dear Lord, I want to come to Japan. I want to study these teachings. I believe this is the truth. Please help me get there. And my car was it was a beautiful little BMW, and it was taking a long time to sell to get there. And I started to suffer, thinking, why doesn't my car sell? I want to go to Japan. I need to get to Japan. My car should sell. And I remember, because back in those days, I was also doing 3 or 4 hours meditation a day as I was studying the teaching. Because I decided, I was going to really delve into this seriously, 100%. Master was teaching, this is the way. So I was going to really not just take it as a half-hearted thing, really go at it full on. So I was doing also, I'd given up my job, I was doing the meditation, I was studying all the teachings, and I decided I was going to Japan. And I said, dear Lord, I'll sell my car, and exactly 2 weeks from the day my car sells, I'll go to Japan. I'll buy a ticket to go to Japan. So I thought it'll happen easy because I've got God on my side. I'm going to Japan, and it's all because of this teaching, and he's Alcantara, and of course it's just going to happen. Well, 2-3 months went by, and my car wasn't selling. Even though I made it a cheap price. I thought, why is my car not selling? And I started to suffer. And at the same time, I remember one of the books that came to you was about faith. And Master said, and he said, faith is 100%. You can't have 99% faith. And I thought, wow, my suffering, the fact that I'm suffering, worrying about not being able to get to Japan at the right time, is a lack of faith. Because if I have true faith and I leave it up to God, say, I've made my prayer, I want to come to Japan, I want to study these teachings, now believe it in the hands of God, right? If I'm worrying about it, I'm worrying what God has lack of power to make it happen at the right time. So I decided, after reading, I thought, that's it. I'm not going to worry. I'm just going to keep studying and self-reflecting and meditating and preparing myself for the day comes when I hopefully do go to Japan. And if I don't go, it's not supposed to happen. And I felt a great sense of just ease. Oh, okay, I don't need to worry anymore about that. Well, I don't know how much longer it was after that, but somebody did come and they drove my car and said, yeah, but I told him on the way, he took it for a drive and I was with him, and I explained to him about why I was selling the car, because everyone says, why are you selling the car? And explained about what would happen and why I was going. And at the end, he said, okay, I'll buy the car. And I'd also told him that I'd made the promise that I was going to go to Japan 2 weeks from the day my car sold. So at the end, he said, oh, you can keep the car for 2 weeks if you want, till you go to Japan. I said, well, look, I don't want the responsibility because, but thank you very much for the offer. So he took the car, and next day I went to the travel agency and I bought a ticket for exactly 2 weeks to go to Japan. Okay, so I get on the plane 2 weeks later to go to Japan, and I'm sitting in the window seat, And next to me is a Japanese lady, young girl actually, probably only 21, and next to her is a Japanese guy, he's 22. They're coming home from their honeymoon, and they tried to teach me Japanese on the 11-hour trip to Japan, but we became friends. It was really nice time spending. 11 hours went fast with those two sitting next to me, and I'd asked them about if they knew Kofuku no Kagaku, because that was the Japanese name, and yeah, they'd heard of it, but they weren't members or anything. And so that was all good, and we got to the other end, and I really liked them a lot, and I would have liked to have got their phone number or something, but I didn't want to ask them for something because I thought they might think that I'm asking them, hoping that they will give me something, like offer me, let them stay at their house or something. I didn't want them to think I wanted anything. So I just said, great, see you later, nice to meet you, goodbye. And when I went through customs, I got through to the other side, and they were waiting for me, because I went through the international area and they went through the Japanese area, and they were waiting for me. And because I told them, they asked me where I was going to sleep that night. I said, probably in the airports, because it was going to be about 4:30 or something. It was winter time by the time we got, so it'd probably be getting dark even at that time almost. So I said I'd probably maybe sleep in the airport. So they waited for me and they took me to a bookstore to try and find a hostel. So we did. We went and found a hostel, and then they took me on the train to our trip to Shinjuku, and they took me off the bus. It wasn't a train, it was a bus. Off the bus, down to the trains, and showed me how to buy a ticket, and they waited till the train came, and one bought a packet of chips, one bought a drink, and gave me those. And I'm like, wow, thank you very much, thank you very much. And they told me to go like 4 stops and get off, and then phone this number, and they'll tell you how to get to the hostel. So I went the 4 stops, I got off, I went upstairs, I was looking for a telephone, an old lady came up to me when I was just looking, she walked, can I help you? I said, actually, I'm looking for this address. Actually, no, I said, I'm looking for the phone. I said, actually, I'm looking for this. And I showed her the address, and she started to explain. She said, come. So she and this old man, we wander off down the road, it's raining a little bit, she had an umbrella, and there was the hostel, right? So, oh my gosh, thank you very much. Suddenly, it felt like Buddha or God had held my hand as we got on that plane in New Zealand, right? And had been leading me the whole way. It was like, like he says here, he says the power of faith is the power to distort the worldly and third worldly laws of physics, because things were just happening like they normally wouldn't happen. And then I went to the hostel. They stayed open for half an hour because they knew I was coming. And you're only allowed 6 days at the hostel. After that, you have to leave. There's no, oh, sorry, can I have one more night? No, because if you do that, it turns into a hotel. If you don't have a strict rule that 6 days, that's it. Hostels instead become hotels. They need to have people moving out, moving in and moving out. The next day, I actually went to Happy Sides. They said to me, I remember I tried to get there for months. When I went to Happy Sides the next day, they said, oh, great timing. Master Okawa gives us once a year a lecture in Tokyo Dome in 2 days' time. So I'd arrived 2 days before this great lecture at Tokyo Dome, where there's about 60,000 people turn up that he only gives once a year. I'd actually arrived 3 months earlier when thought I wanted to get there. I couldn't have gone to this lecture because I could only stay in Japan for 3 months, and then my visa would finish and I'd have to go back to New Zealand, so I never would have seen that lecture. So if I had to believe what I knew was right, instead of just trusting God knew what was right and worried about that, then I would have, actually lost out on something really wonderful. So anyway, as I said, I went to the international division, and they said, oh, great timing. And yeah, sure enough, I went to Master's lecture in about 2 days' time and saw him at that lecture. It was really wonderful. But as I was back to the hostel, you only get 6 days. Well, I got caught up in things. Every day I was going into Happy Science and talking to people and meeting people, and it was just, those 6 days went so fast. Imai-san took me to a temple, and I did devotion to the 3 treasures, and I remember at the time, I think I don't need a devotion to 3 treasures. I already have faith. But, I went along with it. Now I realise the importance of it. Now I try to help other people do devotion to 3 treasures. But anyway, 6th day, I get back to the hostel and I'm cooking my dinner. Actually, I think it was bacon and eggs. I'm cooking away at the stove. I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to leave tomorrow. This is my 6th night. Where am I going? I've got no plan. I don't know where I'm going. I had nowhere to go. So as I'm cooking my dinner, thinking about this, somebody walks into the kitchen, go, anybody looking for a place to stay? I said, oh, mate, I am. And he said, I've got a friend who's from America. He's gone back to America for a couple of weeks, and we're living in a house. We've got a spare room for 2 weeks. I said, mate, yeah, I'm keen. He said, okay, I'll pick you up tomorrow morning. I've got a car. I'll pick you up tomorrow morning. So next day I got in the car and went with him and went and stayed there for 2 weeks. And during that time, I met Beatrice and Ito, who they had a teacher's lodge where they had a big unit, big place, lots of people, maybe 120 people living there. And they were Happy Science members, and I got talking with them. They said, "Oh, where are you staying?" I said, "Well, I'm here now, I'm not sure after that." They said, "Oh, come to our place." So next place I went was there. What I'm saying is that when you have faith and you put your heart in doing the right thing, which is, I want to follow this way, I want to do the best, I want to follow God's way, and you're pure in your intention, you don't need to worry about what comes next. You can't see where your next foothold's about to go, but God, Buddha, Alcantara, always puts something there for you to put your foot on. And that's faith. And that's a beautiful thing, because as you do that, life becomes very liberating, because you think, I don't need to worry. I just have to keep doing my best. I have to keep living with the intention to improve myself and do what I can to be one of the golden ants of God, trying to bring love and enlightenment to this world, to try to help people wake up to the truth. If I live my life developing myself or trying to spread his word or do his work in whatever way it is, we all have different ways, things always take care of themselves. Yeah, that's very liberating to know that. So, the second one here is about understanding the true nature of light. And he said, it is to understand the power of light that comes from heaven, otherwise called other power. So in Happy Science, we talk about the other power, which is God, or self-help power, which is our own efforts to do things. And the idea is to bring these two together perfectly in our lives. So he said, guardian and guiding spirits do exist, and once you know of their existence, you can think about how to receive their power. So knowing that there are guardian and guiding spirits, each one of us have our own guardian spirit and guiding spirits that are trying to guide us in our life. Knowing that, the next thing is, how can I receive their assistance? That's the next most important thing once we know there. He said the most precious ideas and methods actually come from them. So people like I was talking before, like people like Edison, with his inspiration, he had this plan in heaven to bring these ideas to earth. So it's his guardian and guiding spirits that will actually give him the inspiration. So these great artists in life, or great inventors, anybody who's doing great things, it's actually their guardian and guiding spirit that is giving them the information. So how can we communicate with them? And this is the key to understanding the true nature of light. He said it's important to change yourself to be able to communicate with them and receive their advice. So how can we communicate with our guardian and guiding spirit? He said to do so, you must tune the wavelengths of your thoughts to those of your guardian and guiding spirits. You need to think like them in your mind and put those thoughts into practice. So what would the thoughts of the guardian and guiding spirits be? Well, first of all, they're in the heavenly world. So first of all, it's very calm. It's very heavenly. It's a wonderful place of bliss. So we have to create a bliss in our mind to be able to be on the same wavelength as them. If we've got minds that are full of anger or resentment or greed or any of these worldly things, or so much going on, I don't have time to think, I've got all these emails to sort out, I've got this sorting out, and all these worldly things going on in our mind, it's like this, we're talking about the cocoon, it's like having a thick cocoon, or it's like having a thick cloud that's above us that doesn't allow the thoughts through. So the first thing to do is to be able to calm our mind. And actually, Master said the true purpose of meditation is to communicate with our guardian spirits. Meditation has many purposes. One is to make a prayer, please to God, this is what I'd like to do, please help me. It's also to be able to visualize what we want to do and to make it happen. But it's also ultimately about being able to communicate with our guardian spirit. And when this whole talk today is about the real power of human beings. This is one of our greatest powers, and actually one of the powers that are probably the most easy for us to access, and that is to be able to receive the help from our guardian spirit. Okay, so to sum up, he said, first, be aware of the power of faith and its tangible power. It has the power to be in the third dimensional principles. And second, you have the potential to take on part of the great will of the great universe that is trying to work on you. So think about how you can receive that power. So the first is to believe in the great power. Believe that the power of God is there, that there really is this great being that's created everything, and he's created us human beings in the image and likeness of him with the goal of developing ourselves to become close to him, maybe to bring more love and light to the whole universe, but also, while on this earth, to create an ideal world. This is God's ultimate plan. Let the humans develop, and at the same time create an ideal world, a beautiful, wonderful world that shines full of love and light and harmony in this vast universe. So if we can think about that, then we've actually got our minds in tune with the guardian spirits and the guiding spirits, because watching from heaven, that's exactly what they want as well. They want to see us developing, becoming closer to God, becoming more enlightened, becoming more full of light and love. And at the same time, they want to see this world develop into a place where it's a wonderful place for everybody, not just a few. They want everybody. And they want those that actually develop themselves and have got a wonderful life to now use that life to help those that aren't so lucky. So when a country becomes great, they've got to help other countries become great. And as our life becomes great, we've got to help other people become great. Unfortunately, too often, if people aren't thinking spiritually, they think, oh, that's great, I've managed to put myself in a really wonderful position where people look at me at how lucky I am, how much I've got. They respect me, they admire me, they're jealous of me. They don't want to give away what they've got to anybody else, because it's like they're now bringing the others up to their level. Who's going to admire me if everyone's at the same level as me? See, that's the wrong way of thinking. The right way of thinking is to be able to think that my joy comes from using what I've got to bring all of this to everybody. I want everybody to be as happy as I am. I want everybody to work in a way that brings happiness to them and to others, and to create this ideal world. With this vision in mind and this idea in our life, it's the same as what God's got. It's the same as what the guardian and guiding spirits have got. So therefore, things will happen in our life that move us in that direction. Now, we spoke about at the beginning, we did the prayer to the Lord, which is saying there is God. And thank you, God, for all the power, all the light, all the love, everything that you give me. Everything I have comes from you. And then the second one we're talking about is the prayer of guardian and guiding spirits. So now I'd like to do a meditation guided by Master Okawa, which actually, where he is going to give us the opportunity to be able to maybe receive some inspiration from our guardian guiding spirits. Of course, this is such a short period of time, and we've been studying this teaching intellectually now, which is really important, as Master said there. It's really important to know the truth. But that's the first level. The next stage of that, of taking it intellectually, and it becomes our intuition and our belief, deeply held belief, like the fact that I'm a spiritual being, or that there really is God, or that I want to create a life that brings happiness to other people, rather than just being intellectual thought, into actually making it become our thoughts, words, and actions of our reality deep down. So we're going to do in a second a meditation of conversation with our conversation with our guardian and guiding spirit, which will be guided by Master Okawa. But just before we do that, has everybody got the white book? Okay, so we'll recite this prayer. It's a short prayer, but I love this prayer, because how often do people give thanks to their guardian and guiding spirits? Every one of us have one, and since we've been born, and every day they're trying to guide us in our life, we're going to be a guiding or guardian spirit one day. So imagine you've left this earth and you go back there, and part of yourself, we won't get into this too much, but Master explains very clearly how our spirit is made up of various souls, and one comes off and has a life, and another one's working as the guardian spirit. So one day, once we return back to the spirit world and we join in with our soul group, we are going to be a guiding spirit or a guardian spirit. Can you imagine how frustrating that's going to be if your person on earth hasn't woken up and they're living a life completely away from what they planned and the truth, and you're trying to tell them, no, don't do that, but I can't hear a word you're saying because the music's just playing too loud. So this is a chance to say thank you very much, and thank you for guiding me. Please guide me, and I want to hear your voice, and I want to follow your way. So let's start.
Hi there. I'm really sorry, but these prayers and meditation are not available online at the moment, but they are available through Happy Science temples and offices, which are located in countries all around the world. So if you'd like a copy of the prayer book or to know more about the meditation, please contact your local office or temple, and I'll leave a link for information on where you can contact these offices in the information below. Thanks very much.
Yeah, so that was nice, wasn't it? Even just a quiet time, but everybody has a different experience when it comes to guardian spirits, and sometimes we don't even realise how much they affect our lives. But when I look back, when I first found the Laws of the Sun book in the library, and I remember, the fact I went to the library, but also the fact when I was looking along the shelf and just looking, I can still remember the feeling, oh, that looks interesting. I felt compelled to take that book off the shelf. Where did that thought come from? Where did that thought, oh, that looks interesting? And I believe these are the moments in our life, our guardian spirit's guiding us, but it's through our sensitivity, or through us being able to get rid of the ego, being able to make our cocoon more transparent, that we get more chance to be able to receive the inspiration from our guardian and guiding spirit. So that's an important thing, is to always try to work on becoming less ego and more open-minded, more a person just full of love and acceptance, and don't make a big shell. Okay. Master said, even though happiness will come to those who live in tune with the will of God or Buddha, many people choose to ignore it and live recklessly. I guess that's a little bit like I was saying, even when I found the truth and I went off just living my own life, not taking any notice and not making any effort, I was living a little bit recklessly. He said, for humans to exert real power, they first need to go onto the roads of God or Buddha. Choosing the correct path is the starting point of exerting your real power. So this is really important, that, we do have this incredible power and ability and a free will in us. But one of the most important things is in our hearts to decide to choose the path that's a path that God or Buddha has laid down. Because if we follow that path, we can go fast and it's going to be fine. We're going to be protected. But if we go off that path and we're living a reckless life, then trouble can come. And we can find ourselves driving off a cliff, or all sorts of things can happen because we're on the wrong path. So it's really important to be careful to think about our path. He said, choose a path that is truly right and stick to it persistently while making the utmost effort with the spirit of self-help. So that's where in Happy Science we have the idea of self-help and other power. So other power is the God. It's Buddha, God, Alcantari, Allah. But the self-help is our efforts in life. And when the two come together, this is when our own real power and the great things come together. If we're just relying on our own self-help power without any faith and without believing God and without trying to follow the right path, then that's not really going to lead to great things. But if we just believe in God and pray to God, dear God, please make good things happen to me. Dear God, please bring good fortune to me. Dear God, please make my life really wonderful. But then we don't do anything about it. We lie around in bed, or we sit watching TV, or we just don't make any effort to actually go down the path. We just sit on the side of the path and watch everyone else driving past. Nothing's going to happen. So it really is the important thing is to have the faith and to believe that I came to this world to train and develop myself and help create an ideal world. This is the path God's given me. I have some special skills, some special abilities that I've developed that I can use to help other people. Okay, what can I do every day to bring those out and make effort? He said, this is the method of gaining great spiritual abilities. Always remember that you're not simply driving on a road, but you're driving toward your destination for a great purpose. Now, that's nice, isn't it? So we are not just driving aimlessly, we are driving somewhere with a purpose. So we have to think about where we're going. I remember we spoke about this before. You don't want to jump in Adam's Uber and Adam says, where do you want to go? And you say, I don't know, just drive. It might be fun for a while. Go have a look around the city, end up at the beach, end up north, end up south, all over. And then at the end, Adam charges you a whole lot of money, but you didn't really get anywhere or do anything. You just got to be a tourist looking around. But if you say, this is where I want to go, this is my path, please take me there. Finally, Master said, the power that accords with the divine will is the only real power. And humans can exert real power only when they think and act in accordance with divine will. So this is our mission, our purpose, and our goal in life, is to think about what we want to do, think about the purpose of our lives, imagine ourselves as being these spiritual beings inside these cocoons. We want to study the truth, learn the truth. We want to acquire wisdom. See, one way of brightening your life and making yourself shine and people go, oh, this person's very bright, is to have love and wisdom. If you're a person full of love and people think, oh, this person's always so helpful to me, this person's always thinking about me. Rumi's a good example. She's probably listened to me online. She'll be saying, Steve, don't say that. But Rumi's a good example. She's so full of love. Isn't she so bright? Everyone in this room would admit Rumi's so bright. Okay, that is the light shining through the cocoon from a person who's actually exerting their spiritual power through being full of love. Yeah, and so Then the other one is, so that's the one way, is that, if we study the truth and we become people who have wisdom, so that when we meet people and we talk to people, people say, oh gosh, that person has some good answers, they're very wise. I've never met a person who could understand these things. That's one way. And the second way is for us to be able to reflect on ourselves and to be able to really see anything inside our thoughts and our minds that's against the will of God or will of Buddha, and change those and let our cocoon become transparent and let the light shine naturally. So, thank you everybody for coming today. And this was about the real power of human beings, and we all have it. We can bring it out and we can shine it. And yeah, once again, thank you all. Let's go have something to drink, share some company together. Yeah, catch up, because I haven't seen a lot of you guys for a long time actually. So yeah, thank you all.